I want to welcome back Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert. Sean, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me, John. Just wanted to do a quick shout out for an amazing deal that we have for college admissions process podcast listeners. We're offering 30% off all Prep Expert SAT and ACT courses and tutoring. It's live online. We've got the best score improvement guarantees in the industry. You'll get taught by 99 percentile instructors, and you can save 30% off when you go to the show notes of the College Admissions Process podcast. Grab your discount code for 30% off and click the link in the show notes.
Thank you, Sean. So great to have you again. And to everyone out there, please note that if you make a purchase through any of our affiliate links, the podcast gets a commission. But rest assured that we would only promote products that we believe in and feel would benefit our listeners. Thank you all and best wishes. Welcome to the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Ian Schachner, who's the Senior Associate Director in the School of Industrial and Labor Relations at Cornell University. Now, Ian recorded with me back on episode 14. His episode was also re-released as episode 127 during the summer when we did our Playback Wednesdays for episodes that got the most overall downloads. So, Ian, it is an honor and pleasure to have you back. How you doing today?
It's great to see you. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me back.
Fantastic. And it's our pleasure, like I said. So, Ian, why don't we start by me asking you, can you share what, if anything, has changed in your application review process since our last conversation back in episode 14?
Sure. Yeah. So, say one big thing for Cornell as a whole that's changed is there's now an additional essay for applicants. In the past, we've had, of course, the common application essay. We use the Common App. And then we've had the supplement essay. Cornell supplement is where you write about the particular college or school at the university that you're applying to. But there is now a Cornell-specific essay. So there is a school/college essay, but then a Cornell University essay. It's shorter. It's only about 350 words. And this is a place for people to talk about the communities that matter to them, that they've belonged to, that have helped shape them throughout their lives. One of the most repeated lines from the founder, kind of the founding motto there is, I would found an institution where any person can find instruction in any study. This was a post-Civil War statement. This was a time of incredible exclusion in education. So we're pretty proud that Cornell was quite radical at the time in terms of saying that what you learn and how you learn, all of that will be better the more that we have people from different backgrounds and different perspectives. And so that's kind of the heart of the university. And so it's something we want people to care about and respect, that kind of original mission there, and to share a bit about what makes them who they are.
Well, that's fantastic. And we're going to talk a lot about the supplementals because your conversation really shed light in terms of what are the specific differences between a general essay and the supplemental essays. And I say essays because now, as you said, there's an additional Cornell specific, not one of the 8 schools that make up Cornell, right? There's, the supplemental related to the school that you're applying to. But now you have a general essay about all of Cornell, which we're going to come back to. But Ian, I have to ask, during our last conversation, you explained how admissions is the quote unquote HR of academia, which I thought was such a great comparison. So when selecting a class from hundreds of qualified candidates, what are some of the key components you are looking for from your applicants to help determine which students should be admitted?
Sure. So just to kind of clarify, for those that didn't witness the last interview, what I mean by that HR of academia, it's a few things. One is professionally. I think I mentioned it as how I wound up in the field, that it's what I was studying. And for those not aware, human resource management, it involves things like how any organization recruits people, How do you select the right people? How do you evaluate their performance? And to me, that's a lot of what admissions does. You're looking at these applicant pools. You're just as organizations try to find the best employees, the ones who are not just qualified and capable of succeeding in the role, but the ones who genuinely care about that company or that nonprofit or that government organization. You want someone who cares about the mission as much as the people who are there do. And that's a lot of what we do in the admissions process. So that's how it applies there as well. It's one of the reasons why I talk a lot about exploring the structure of a college or a university, really understanding whether you're applying to the whole school or a major or a department that's a lot of what every place reads for. Um, over the years, we've seen applications jump up at a lot of different institutions. And I think it's become really scary to some people how competitive some places appear. But part of me wonders, well, what do those higher numbers actually represent? How many of those people are you actually going up against? Meaning, if you're willing to do that extra research, if you're the one that actually didn't just select 5 more schools through the Common App, change the name of the school in an essay, hopefully you did that, and then click send again, like, are you really going up against them? Are schools that selective, or do we just have too many people applying to what may be an increasing average number of schools to which people are applying? Um, so that's something I think about a lot. And to your question about, well, thinking of the HR of academia, well, yeah, if you're going to select someone for a job, you're not looking for the person who's applying for 10 banks and used the same essay, or maybe changed 1 or 2 lines, right?
Right.
The equivalent of that is someone is applying to us. They may be applying to Cornell's College of Business, College of Engineering. It could be the ILR school where I work. And maybe they took their essay from a business school, a pre-law program, or an econ program. And then you can kind of see, sometimes they forget to unbold it, right? They bold the name of the school. And then there's maybe 1 or 2 lines at the end where they say, and through exciting classes like conflict resolution and negotiations, I can prepare for the future. That I respect the effort, the awareness that it is good to tailor it. But if we're looking at as a highly selective institution, just as highly selective employers will do, you need more. You're looking for
Right.
someone that went deeper. That's not just going to select things off the website. That's really going to connect to the mission, to the substance, to the issues in that school.
So, under that theme of a student having to go deeper, how, as an organization, do you recruit, as you put it, the right people, but in this case, the right students? And how do you evaluate their overall performance when reviewing those applications?
Sure. So on the recruiting end, what I will say is, well, how do we do that? Well, um, if you were to look at Cornell's presentations, our website, our brochures, um, there are some common themes among them in that many of them kind of start quite broad, getting people to look at, is this type of university for you? Um, do you have some of the passions that we have? But pretty much all of them encourage people to then start filtering down, right? To then see, hey, there are several different ways to do computer science. There are several different ways to be pre-med, pre-vet, to explore your interests wherever your starting point is. So all of our marketing, all our recruitment efforts eventually are this kind of funnel to lead people into doing the type of research that we talked about previously, into diving into course descriptions, diving into the explanations of a program so that you can distinguish, well, why is computer science different than info science? Why, if there are 3 or 4 or 5 different ways to head into these different areas of business law or government, why might one way be a better fit for me than another? So our recruitment, it is sharing what we offer, but it's also instructional in helping people see, well, given all of that, here's how to narrow down what's right for you. And then, then of course, to the other part of your question, well, then how do we select? We select by looking at people who listened to what we said. They didn't stop at the website of the brochure. They dove deeper into the details. They are not applying to information science with what is a traditional computer science essay. They are not applying to a public policy school, our public policy school, with what would be a regular government major essay. So that really is, I always say that if you really dive into any of Cornell's marketing, our presentations, our information sessions, any conversation you have on the phone with us, we're not very subtle. We want to help people understand the unique structure, and we want to help people see that we don't want you to just default to, hey, that says College of Business. I like business. I think I want to do government. There's a government major. We want to help you see not only that there are these other ways to study these different fields, but there's a big payoff for finding some of those unique lenses that may actually fit you better.
Well, I appreciate that. And Ian, in our last conversation, and you touched upon it again here today, you advise students to consider, and I quote, is Cornell appealing to me?
Wow.
Is it the right place for me? You also spoke about how you love Cornell and that it's the right place for a lot of people, but it's not the right place for everyone, right? Just like any school out there, and there's over 4,000 in the United States alone. So, what would you say are the most important components that students should really consider when trying to determine whether or not Cornell University is the right fit for them or not?
Sure. This is one that I think is pretty, to me, I think there's just some straightforward things to consider. One is kind of city versus rural, right? Ithaca, New York, we have 30,000 people. When all the students and staff and faculty here, there's another 30,000. We're in Tompkins County, which has about 100 people. We're not New York City. We're not Cambridge. There are students who just know this about themselves. It could be that they grew up in or near a very large city and they visited some smaller areas and they just know that's where they're more comfortable. It could be that they specifically did not grow up in such a city and they absolutely are dying to live there and have that experience. Then we have the exact opposite. I say this with the caveat that these are young people who should be open to experiences and accept other ways of living and maybe give some places a chance. But I'm just saying there are some students that just know, and they need to be honest about that with themselves, and they need to be honest about that with their families. If they say, like, look, I want to be in a city, I want to have school, but then I want a separate life of all these parks and museums and all these other employers and thousands of different businesses. That's not us. We have a very vibrant community. If you want to get involved with something, if you want to get involved with a nonprofit, for-profit, I always use the example of we have some people that say, I want to get involved in advocacy in government. Our last mayor was a 24-year-old Cornell graduate, who ran for office when he was a student. It's a fun thing about small communities. If you want to get involved, you can get really involved. But that's something. City versus rural. The other one is, I think, just size. I knew I didn't want an enormous school with 10,000 plus students. 5, 6 was right for me. There are some students that they're okay. They want the 30, the 40,000. They want an option to have little small silos of a department or a club, but then an enormous community to draw upon. And some want the opposite. So those are really the two things that stand out with Cornell. We're sort of medium there. We're about 16,000 undergraduates. But being honest about what size school and location is really important.
Well, I also read recently that Cornell's retention rate is an astonishing 96%, which of course the national average is somewhere around 70%. So Ian, what is the secret to not only attracting so many students to apply, but once they're accepted, keeping them happy and wanting to return year after year?
So when someone asks a question about that, like the secret to attracting, and then I think, okay, the secret to recruitment, that means admissions number. If you're at a research university, this is how you think, right? Someone asks questions like this, and you go, what data do we have? What has been researched? What has been proved? Um, so with regard to attracting, I don't know, this is an area where I kind of speak bluntly about all admissions results and numbers and stuff. What's the secret to it? We're very fortunate. We have a great brand. We have incredible placement rates. We are an old institution that is the largest Ivy, so we have a number of wonderful alums who are out there every day as our advocates. What other things attract students? I don't know, money, like how much. I mean like how much a school spends on marketing, right? Maybe the Common App, right? That's a common thing when schools don't have the Common App, and then they switch to the Common App, and it becomes easier to apply. So just to be honest about it, sure, we're very lucky. We have a great brand. We have excellent outcomes and incredible faculty and incredible researchers, and that attracts a lot of people. But just to say, what's the secret to attracting a lot of people? I don't know if this is there are a number of factors that go into why any school has certain numbers. So let's just be aware of that. And I mentioned that not in a joking way. I mean, like, what keeps people? Well, that could also be a factor. When you are at a place and you work very hard to get to a place known for excellent outcomes, when you know that the effort you put in can result in placement rates at firms that we're very proud of, graduate school placement rates. We're a place that strives very hard and invests a lot of resources into making sure that students not only discover what their passions are, but are able to pursue them. And that comes not just from why the retention, because we invest a lot, I believe, in advising, career advising, academic advising. We're a needs-based institution that, I'm very proud that we're one of the more generous institutions in the country with financial aid, and that plays a big role as well. So I think all of those come together. That what attracts them can be good outcomes, good financial aid, knowing that there's a lot of support, and what keeps them there, what retains them, is not just that support you get along the way, but yes, knowing that it can be worth it.
Well, we appreciate that. And you mentioned financial aid. So, Ian, can you tell us about the university's approach to financial aid and scholarships and what resources are available to help students navigate this process?
Sure. So this is an area where I'm not kicking the can, but I will say at some universities, admissions and financial aid are together. At Cornell, it's completely split. So we will not know. We are need blind for domestic students. We are need aware for international applicants. But when we review your application, please note we are not kind of diving into your income and assets. That's not something that we're looking at there. So the best thing to learn about financial aid is go right to the financial aid site. You can set up. I would watch all the videos. You can set up a time to speak with a counselor if you need to. But we are very fortunate in that we can state on our website, you'll see loan initiatives. We are committed to making Cornell a place that is 100% affordable, and we do that through loans, through grants, through scholarships, through work study. But it's needs-based aid. So generally speaking, the more in need someone is, based on an evaluation of their income and assets, the greater aid that they will receive. And I really do encourage people, everyone in higher ed, we're always fighting this issue with sticker price. So people can see $85,000, $88,000. They'll see $100,000 for a university and they'll just go, that's crazy. Why am I paying that? Without getting into the whole history of that aspect of higher education, it's very important to slow down, look over the aid site, especially for Cornell, and look at how aid is applied. And generally speaking, the more in need someone is, the significantly greater aid that they can get. And I'm very proud that we are quite generous with regard to capping and eliminating loans.
Well, we appreciate that. And I also appreciated in our last conversation and even earlier today how you spoke about when you're reviewing supplemental essays, you really need to see that it's not just a copy and paste from another university, and how the applicant needs to demonstrate their understanding of the programs offered or the school within Cornell that they are applying to. So, Ian, I want to touch upon the application review process a little
Sure.
more. Can you dive deeper into how to approach the supplemental essay as a student and perhaps share an example of one that serves as a lesson of what not to do?
For an example of what not to do, I'm going to use I'll give a category that encompasses thousands of examples that we get every year. Um, so what I'm referring to when I talk about that diving into to prepare for the supplement, this is really a function of how when you investigate a college, you're really trying to get a sense of, well, how does a school admit? Right? And as I said, when you apply to Cornell, you apply to one of the particular colleges or schools at Cornell. So I'm glad we started with the essay question because, yes, there is now a 350 word Cornell University question. But there's a 650 word supplement, and that is the one that is about your targeted college and school. That is the one, and to be honest, that's something that we're kind of hoping the general Cornell essay helps with, so that people understand really the focus for that supplement should be answering the question your specific college or school asks. Don't try to jam in Cornell specific things into that one. If you were applying, say, to the ILR school for business, law, government, nonprofit, I'm glad that you want to take music classes, and we're so happy that you want to participate in the marching band or do an organization, a university-wide organization like Model UN or Mock Trial. But that's just not the space to talk about it in that supplement essay. That Cornell supplement essay is where you really need to go all in on your targeted school. And so you're asking, well, how do you do that? I talk a lot about understanding the structure, making sure that you look over the curriculum of your targeted program. Even insofar as getting the words down, right? If you're looking at a particular college or school, how do they talk about their program? Um, do you get a major in that college or school, or is it called a concentration, or is it like my school where you do one major? I'll go back to how I call admissions the HR of academia. If you are applying to Bank of America and you are applying to their sales and trading unit, and you want to be an investment bank, you don't want to talk about you don't want to write an essay where you talk about how much you can't wait to both be doing sales and trading and marketing. Right, like a double major, right? That's not what the role is. I'm using a workplace example to say, well, that's great that you have this interest in marketing, but one, you should have seen that this is really the sales and trading role. And so I'm not saying it just to be critical to say, how could you mess that up? Sometimes it's a sign that we're worried someone didn't do enough research. Maybe they don't know what they're getting into. Maybe they were applying to another bank that does allow them to have a small project in marketing while
Right,
doing investment banking, right?
right.
You worry a little bit. You want to make sure that they're happy too and that you're going to meet their expectations. So the structure part is really important with those supplement. And to my first point, focus on what they're asking. Don't start branching out into classes you want to take in all the other schools, into clubs you'd be able to be a part of, regardless of which program that you're in. Go all in on your targeted program in the supplement.
Well, we appreciate that. And you also referred to the overall application as a marketing package and even stated that marketing is not about a good use of space, it's about the best use of space, while advising that students should prepare their applications like it's the 30th application an admissions counselor is reading that day.
Yep.
So, Ian, what can you share from the thousands of applications you've read that led you to share those thoughts?
Oh. um, so what led me to share those thoughts was 18 years and 25,000 applications. That's what led me to share those thoughts. If someone's interested in our program, we want to help them prepare. We want to help them as much as we can, right? You can't read essays. You can't tell someone, oh, that's a horrible idea, right? You can't. But to the extent that we can help everyone understand what allows them to prepare the strongest application, that's what we want to do. So I just remembered, related to the last question that you asked, I was mentioning a category. What's an example of what not to do? Well, what not to do, that big category I was going to mention was write an essay that skips us.
Mm,
Write an essay that talks about what you can't wait to do in grad school or a profession that you want. Well, you just
right.
skipped college. Thousands of people do that. Right? Thousands of people do that. Now, if you're applying to a pre-med program, might they want to know that you're passionate about being a doctor? Absolutely. It's a good use of space. Is that the best use of space for a school that's trying to determine whether you understand that biology and society is not biological sciences, which is different than a biology or chemistry major? That is not the best use of space, right? So just to tie those two together, right? You reading 25,000 applications and seeing lots of applications to all the other schools at Cornell, speaking with students, speaking with my colleagues, I say consider the best use of space, because when people say, okay, what should I do to prepare a good application? They don't want a good application. They're not asking how to prepare a good application. You don't want to have a great application. You want the one that will make it to the top. And one of the things that keeps a lot of people with the grades and the scores and the references from being great but not being at the top is they did a good job. They had a good use of space. Wasn't the best use of space, or they wrote an essay that God, it's a realistic thing. It's someone who's working. It's not a computer that's judging your application. If someone, you may realistically be the 30th application that day. And if you don't show that you understand why one program is different than another, if you are not showing your genuine passion until that fourth or fifth or until that final paragraph, you're not going to stand out. You're not going to stand out the way you want to. You may have done a good job, but it's not the job you're trying to accomplish.
Well, those are great pieces of advice in terms of helping a student to stand out. Obviously, you're reading hundreds upon thousands of essays, and so those are great words of wisdoms for students. So I really hope you're listening to Ian. And so, Ian, can you explain the differences between being deferred or even waitlisted? And if either happens, and the student is still very much interested in Cornell, is there anything they can do to help their chances of being accepted?
Good question. So when we talk about deferral, what we're talking about is early decision applicants. We don't have early action. We have early decision. And you always want to double check with the particular college or school that you're applying to at Cornell. Some schools, if you apply early, they may just admit you or refuse you. Many schools at Cornell, you can be admitted early, you can be refused, or you can be deferred to the regular pool, right? Where you will be reviewed again. The wait list is what happens at the end. Wait lists are really colleges and universities' way to try to honor the fact that there were many students that they may have thought were admissible, but they didn't have the spaces for. It's also a way for colleges and universities to try to nail that enrollment target. We don't want to under enroll because we have more opportunities for people to be there. We want to take advantage of that. And you don't want to over enroll. So waitlist is a key tool in enrollment management. You get a general number that we admit, with the hope that we hit an enrollment target. And as you get closer to that enrollment target, a lot of brilliant statisticians behind the scenes will say, you know what, we think you may be a little off. You may need to go to the wait list this year to admit some more. Let's start with what not to do. Don't email every week. We don't want you to do that. This is an example. I'll say it again. The HR of academia, right? You submit an application, you hear they're in the running. Do not email HR or the recruiter every week, bothering them. The way part of the application process is judging how you navigate the application process, because we see that as exactly how you will represent us and the university when you apply to an internship, a job, an abroad program, a research opportunity. So we don't want you emailing the State Department or a law firm or bank or a hospital 15 times, right? So it's professionalism. Show us the same professionalism that we hope you will demonstrate should you join us. So what does that mean? One thing that means is listening to what we tell you about your opportunities going forward. So read those emails carefully. If a school says, please click here to formally accept, say, your spot on the wait list, or if it says, this is the place to go to share any updates, listen to them. Follow what they say you should do, but then make the quality of those follow-ups as substantive as possible. So what's there to do that? If you write something that could be sent to every other college on your list, don't send it. It's not going to stand out. It does not follow that you have to submit another essay, something short, a paragraph or two, something that in line with the supplement essay shows why you are still interested, reminds them why you would be great to have on campus. So a short follow-up, whether you're deferred or on the wait list, that says, hey, here's something I'm excited to be in the pool because XYZ. And XYZ can be, here's a project I've done since I applied. Here's something that I'm tracking in the news. Here's something that I just went through, something that I accomplished in a club that is a reminder of why I want to study this or why this program is right for me. So it's not a full essay, but in line with making that specific fit to your targeted college or school, that's what it has to be. That's what can be a meaningful follow-up.
Well, I appreciate that, and I have to say I loved what you said earlier. Part of the application process is judging how you, as a student, manage the application process. So to your point, emailing just to email every week or to send something that you could send to any school in the country, and frankly, that doesn't add to your overall application is really a no-no, students. But Ian, I want to ask you, so if, for example, a student is waitlisted, all of a sudden they find out that they are a Regeneron scholar in research or they become a national merit finalist. Those are things that you didn't have on the original application. Are those examples of things that students should share with you?
Yes, along with the statement that I'm saying. And this is just speaking bluntly about we are incredibly fortunate. We get a very well qualified applicant pool. A pool of people accomplished. I mean, it's the smartest people in the world. We're very lucky, and so just consider. Well, I guess I kind of answered my response to you, which is they may be. Are they the Regeneron scholar, or are they one of 15? Right? Like, will there be 15 others who may also submit that same thing? So, if
Right.
that's something that you would submit to every school, that's great, but it should have some component of reinforcing why Cornell or why your targeted program. Scholarships earned and notable achievements, absolutely.
Understood, and we appreciate that. And getting back to your general review, I'm just curious because if one student's high school offers, for example, 25 different advanced placement courses, and yet another candidate school only offers five, how does the evaluation process differ for these students?
Yeah. So I think the best way to reply to that is just to highlight that I don't think it differs. Um, in that when schools use the word holistic a lot, but they don't really describe what it means. For us, what holistic means is you have to look at the demonstrated potential someone is showing you based on the opportunities they were given, right? So I could reply that uh, one student who has completed 20 or 25 AP courses, but another one only had 5 offered. If I were to massively weight the one with 25 over 5, am I not punishing the other child for where they were born or where their family
Right.
decided to move? So
Right.
this is a serious equity issue, which is why uh, typically for most schools that I'm aware of, sure, you may look for certain types of expertise demonstrated, take STEM programs that look for scientific or quantitative expertise. Yeah, you have to ensure that people have the foundational acumen in the field to succeed. You want to make sure they're prepared, but reading holistically means you look at what was available to them, right? And sure, if someone can do something like, if you're able to, if you have the time to do it, if you're able to say, challenge yourself, take a higher level college course or something like that, sure. But we have to be very careful in our review process not to punish someone for that, because that also points to the equity reason of resources. Who doesn't have to work? Who has the money to simply say, hey, I'm going to pay X thousand dollars for some college level course that wasn't available in my community? So you're really looking at how did someone perform and the rigor of their coursework, but we're looking at that all in the context of what was available to them.
Well, I appreciate that. And I love how you talked about the equity issue there. That's fantastic. And you're right. You're looking at the student, what was available to them, and how did they participate in all of those great things that were available. So we appreciate that, Ian. And once again, this has been a phenomenal conversation. And before I get to my last question, I do have to ask, Ian, is there a question I didn't ask today or a topic that I simply didn't bring up that you wish to discuss with us now?
Yeah. Oh boy, that's a good one. Well, so I know you. I know you ask. I know you often ask about advice. So I think I might combine these two if you don't mind. We get a lot of questions, increasingly questions about what's the best way to navigate the stress of this process. It's not an easy process. Um, I think you look at colleges and schools now, you look at all of these changes going on. There are changes in how people learn, where they learn. Uh, there's dual enrollment opportunities. There's opportunities to take college classes now that so many places were online for years. Those opportunities have increased. There's a lot of there's been a massive reduction in the media of specialized reporters over the decades, right? We used to have far more education reporters or labor reporters, experts in an area, such that the things people were hearing about something like the college search process were by people with better training and expertise and the time to get the full story, right? So there are a number of things that I think have made this process more stressful, and certainly more stressful than it needs to be. So that would be I guess, the question that I will both ask and answer. And it points to the piece of advice that I always bring up. It's the fourth or fifth time I'm mentioning. I wound up seeing admissions as the HR of academia in terms of recruitment, selection, performance evaluation. When people go through an HR process to thinking about applying for a job, it's not terribly different. These students who are going through this process now, toward the end of college, they're going to be here, or even in college, right? When they start looking at internships and all that, they're going to have to do these challenging assessments about who am I? How do I like to work? What am I good at? Or I'm good at something, but do I actually want to do that for a living / make that my major, right? How do I explore an organization and find out if it's right for me, if the location is right, the culture is right, the city is right, the size is right, the same things that we're talking about. So I guess one thing that I just want to emphasize, people ask a lot about, okay, how do we navigate this complex process? What are ways to make it a little less stressful? And the thing that I emphasize more than anything else is to frame it that way as sort of a proxy for HR processes, as it is really just a test run for what happens next. In other words, you shouldn't be perfect at it. You should be a little concerned. You should be a little open to saying, "Oh, I did this part well, but I don't think I'm doing this part well." This process can be just as educational as any class that you go through. So rather than feeling stressed that you're not doing it right, or you just learned something that you wish you knew months earlier, or quite frankly, let's just say, "Hey, I'm feeling stressed. I'm applying to these selective institutions." To every student who's applying to these places, especially, again, we're very fortunate. We get incredibly bright people. It's not as if you will get into a Cornell and suddenly lower your standards.
Right.
You are the type of people who will likely keep applying to selective scholarships, internships, jobs. So it's not the easiest process, but that's okay, because that's how you reach your potential and that's how you strive to get to the best places. So don't beat yourself up. Look at it as a class. And as you go through it, just keep telling yourself that, like, this is just training. The tools and the things that I learn about myself and learn about how to investigate my interest in another organization, how to put together a good application, it's just training for what you're going to keep doing going forward.
Well, those are great pieces of advice. And obviously, that's why I was so happy to have you here today, because that first conversation we had was awesome. And this one is right up there and perhaps even exceeded the first conversation. So I can't thank you enough, Ian. It does lead us to the last question. I know you touched upon a lot of pieces of advice, but what are your last three pieces of advice that you would provide a student and their parents getting ready for the college admissions process?
I'll stick with the example I used. I'll give more specific examples of it, right? Look at this as training. Look at this as training. We don't get essays from people who go, "I want to go to Cornell. And then when I'm there, I just want to kind of coast for a few years and then find, some sort of average post-college employment where I can just phone it in for a few decades and retire." That's not who we get, right? You're going to continue to strive for things. And so this really is for many people, not that you haven't applied for things in high school, but this massive organizational shift, this shift to living somewhere else, this shift to perhaps one of the most competitive things you've done. It really is just training. So I want you to think specifically about how you navigate this process and what you learn about yourself and how you work. Um, what what tools, what habits work well for you when applying to a selective opportunity. So, what's piece of advice? Pay attention to your time management, not how you'd love to work or how you really think you would work. How do you actually work? Is there a time of day, or is there think about, we're talking about the essays, right? Are you good at timing creativity? Right? If you need to do this good essay, are you really good at saying, and the 2 hours before I go to sleep, that's when I'm going to do the essays. And now I'm going to sit here. Okay, it's 9 o'clock at night. Be creative. Does that really work for you, right? Or is it, oh my God, making notes in class? All of a sudden it comes to me and I need to get better at jotting things down. That matters. Learning that about yourself matters now. So when am I creative? How do I manage my time for handling these things? And the last thing I'm going to say is putting your team together. So I hope that three pieces of advice: being honest with yourself about when can I be the type of creative thinker or writer? When do I think best about who I am and what I want to say? General time management. Start being honest about how you work, because as soon as you get to college, you're going to have to fit in researching internships, clubs, different opportunities there. This is a good test run for it. And the last thing is who you have on your team. A piece of advice: if I say this to 10 people, maybe one of them does it. add someone to your team who is more interested in honesty than your feelings. It is not the worst idea to get a friend of a friend who maybe you're not close with, but you heard had good writing skills. Maybe go to a teacher that you don't have a great bond with and you're going to ask for the reference. This is part of the process of how you put together a good job application, right? A good grad school application. Some people just show their parents. I say, like, my mom thinks I'm the handsomest boy in the world. That cannot be the only person who weighs in on my essay. So find someone who will call you out and focus more on the outcomes than whether they're kind of making you feel good about how you're doing. That's a good member of any team you'll ever be a part of.
Well, those are tremendous pieces of advice, Ian. I can't thank you enough for, frankly, episode 1 and for coming back with this terrific follow-up. I'm so happy,
Thank
as I
you.
know that this is going to help so many students and their parents as they navigate through the college admissions process, whether, by the way, they're applying to Cornell University or not. You really gave a lot of pearls of wisdom here today. Can't thank you enough, Ian. I hope to have you back again soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for your work.
An honor and a pleasure, and good luck to all the students and parents out there as you navigate through the college admissions process. Take care, everyone. Good luck. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAP.